Suppose this guy named, let's say Jerry, is so stupid that he actually believes that the Earth is flat. However, he thinks that he will be able to score brown nose points with the Illuminati if he helps them convince people that the Earth is round. He therefore starts telling people what he genuinely believes to be a lie: the Earth is round. Now, does the fact that Jerry believes that he is lying, and that his intention is to deceive people, make this statement false? Of course not, because the intention behind the claim is part of its historical context, the heritage of the claim, if you will, and not of the claim itself. The genetic fallacy is the fallacy of thinking that the history of the claim is relevant to whether it's true or not. All that matters is the claim as presented. If it's true, then it's true. If it's false, then it's false. Similarly, an argument is sound or not regardless of its historical background. Who said it, under what circumstances, and why are all irrelevant to the truth or soundness of what was said. The same applies to alternative interpretations of a claim. This feather is light may be intended to mean this feather is not heavy, but if it's also light as in not dark, then that interpretation of the claim is also true, even though it wasn't what the speaker meant. The speaker meant not heavy, therefore you are wrong in pointing out that it's not dark, would be the genetic fallacy. I recently, as of the making of this video, took part in an exchange about the basics of set theory, where a Platonist argued that because the axioms of set theory declare that certain sets exist, and because the people who first formulated these axioms were Platonists, which will be granted for the sake of argument, then the axioms refer to existence in the Platonic sense. As such, if you reject Platonic realism, the belief that mathematical objects exist for real independently of human thought, just like physical objects, then you must reject the axioms of set theory. You can't accept axioms that declare that sets exist in the Platonic sense and still reject Platonic realism. Of course, the problem with this is that the axioms don't mention in what sense sets exist. By the axioms, they exist in whatever sense other mathematical objects exist. What that in turn means is not addressed. For the axioms to be useful, that a set exists only needs to mean that the rules of set theory allow for the set to be used within the context of set theory. If that is because sets are real and exist for real in some metaphysical realm waiting for someone to discover them, is an entirely separate issue, even if the people who first formulated the axioms held that belief. Perhaps we should also demand that only Christians use Newtonian mechanics, since Newton developed it with the assumption that the rules of the universe were created by the Christian God. In his work, Newton even referred to God. God supposedly made force equal mass times acceleration, so surely accepting this law must mean accepting that God exists, right? No, Newton's laws are useful whether God exists or not. Any references to God in Newton's work are completely superfluous, and his religious beliefs have nothing to do with how useful his theory might be in practice, even if those beliefs played a part in how he developed his theory. Winston Wu commits this fallacy when he talks about Occam's razor, the principle that explanations should not contain unnecessary entities. Another way of phrasing it would be, the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Simplest meaning the one that has the smallest number of unsupported assumptions. Quote, "It was not intended to be used to evaluate claims of the paranormal as skeptics today use it for. Obviously, he was referring to explanations to explain natural phenomena, not paranormal or supernatural phenomena," unquote. Okay, I don't think that's true. Occam was using it when talking about whether something should be considered a miracle or not, but that's beside the point. Let's accept that Occam only intended for the principle to be used to evaluate claims about natural phenomena. How does this make the principle any less useful when applied beyond that scope? Simple, it doesn't. If it is useful beyond that scope, then guess what? Occam came up with a principle that was even better than he thought it was. Seriously, is Wu for real? Well, guess what? It doesn't matter. His Debunking Debunkers treatise has just as many fallacies in it, even if it was intended as a joke. Again, when assessing an argument, only the argument matters. The intent behind it is a separate thing. So hang on, am I saying that this guy is trying to sell you something, don't trust him, is a fallacy? The intent behind the argument is to sell you something and the intent is irrelevant? No, not at all. What I'm saying is that this guy is trying to sell you something, therefore what he says is in fact false is a fallacy. That may sound like a subtle difference, but it definitely isn't. The fact that this guy is trying to sell you something means that you probably shouldn't trust him. You shouldn't take him at his word. But the fact that he wants to sell you something does not disprove his claims. Until next time, stay logical.